Mike Pence holds such an interesting position on the right now, narrowly avoiding potentially being strung up on January 6th with an insane mob that attacked the Capitol. Well, now he's being heckled. He was at the Faith and Freedom Coalition Summit, and here's how his speech went.
It is great to be back with so many patriots dedicated to faith and freedom and the road to the majority. And I want to thank my friend Ralph Reed for those overly generous words. I'm deeply humbled by them. Ralph Reed knows me well enough to know the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order, and I am honored to stand before you today.
Stop using that line. God, I'm sick of that line. Anyway, they were yelling traitor at him. Even though he stood loyally by Donald Trump for year after year. He's a crazy right winger. Like, he's totally their people, but he didn't overthrow the election with powers he doesn't have. So David, I'm curious, is there any way that he gets back into the good graces of that party? Or is the dissent being overplayed?
That's such a great question. So first of all, I'm from Indiana. I remember when Mike Pence was governor, my parents would talk about what a terrible governor he was. I thought that he was a terrible vice president, but I would never stand up and say traitor at Mike Pence. I'd be a little bit more respectful. So I think that goes to show just how crazy some of the people in the lunatic far right really are regarding Mike Pence. And I don't think that there's much hope for Mike Pence at this point, because he does carry, whether it's fair or not, he does carry some of that baggage of being seen as, well, he wanted the wheels of democracy to keep rolling, and he was therefore willing to authenticate the election. And there's enough Republicans out there who see that as some sort of betrayal, even though Pence was operating within the Constitution, and I'll give him credit for that. But there are enough Republicans that are out there who consider that to have a certain sort of stink factor. And so I think for somebody like, the Florida governor or somebody else who doesn't have that same sort of burden, DeSantis, for somebody who doesn't have that same sort of burden, I think it's easier in a certain way for them to appeal to the far right fringe, because they don't have to talk about their role during the election, and they can be just as conservative as Mike Pence and not have that baggage weighing him down.
Yeah, you're probably right. And there was one of the straw polls, I think at the Western Conservative Values, whatever. Just a couple days ago, DeSantis actually narrowly beat Trump in approval for running for president in the coming next election. I think you're right. The thing that it bothers me, I wonder if it bothers Mike Pence, is that Donald Trump spent weeks telling people that Mike Pence could save them, and didn't, obviously, because he didn't have the power. He could stop this. He could stop the calls of traitor. He could speak out in support of his vice president, but he's not actually doing that. And I wonder if that bothers Mike Pence after all of his loyalty, that Donald Trump has effectively like washed his hands of Mike Pence. So I don't know what becomes of him. It doesn't seem like he'd pick him to be his VP when he runs again, but I don't know, perhaps we'll all be surprised.
I gotta believe that it does bother Mike Pence, but maybe he's got such a disciplined view of the long view, the long game in all this, that Mike Pence doesn't want to engage in all this. He's just gonna take it in hopes that somehow that keeps him above the fray. But I gotta believe, John, that it gets under his skin. At least I'd hope so.
That is certainly possible.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.